Okay, so now don't miss the next section because it is all about NFTs. I mean, who of you know about NFT? For those here in the room, NFTs? And you know everything about it? Who know everything about NFT? Everything about NFT? Anyone? No. Good. So what we want to explore is this new revenue opportunity and see how can you engage and reward also your fund loyalty. We want to explore the potential of this new tool, let's call it that way. And we have a panel now, which will be moderated by Thilini Jayawickrama, and who is an event and communication manager. And we will have also on stage Heiko Hoffmann, the Vice President, Global Artist Services of Beatport. We will have Oscar Atanga. He's an artist and creative strategist at the Black Artist Database. We have DeWalta, who is a musician, DJ, and producer. And we will have Philipp Köhn, the CXO of 12 by 12. And I think it's going to be super interesting. So stick to it. They're coming right now. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to today's discussion, NFTs, the power shifts to artists. My name is Thilini and I work for the Association for Electronic Music, and I'm really delighted to be here today moderating this talk. Today I'm joined by DeWalta, Philipp, Oscar and Heiko, and I will let them introduce themselves. I guess you're all here because NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, have been one of the hot topics of 2021. So we all know it's offering a lot of potential for both creators and fans. So today we're going to be examining what this exciting new format is and the ways in which the industry is already embracing it and looking to the future of how this space might develop. I'll let you start, Heiko, if you can just tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hello, good morning, good morning. My name is Heiko Hoffmann. I'm actually here from Berlin, have been most of my life here, have been working as a journalist for most of my life, and for the last couple of years looking after artist services at Beatport, which is the main platform selling music to DJs around the world. And I'm also a teacher at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music at NYU. And the reason why I'm sitting here is that at Beatport this April we launched the first music NFT by a music seller, by a music shop, and the world's first music compilation as an NFT.
Thanks, Heiko. And Oscar?
Morgan. My name is Oscar Atanga, and like I was introduced, I'm a creative strategist over at Black Artist Database. I'm also an artist and a DJ with a residency over at Refuge Worldwide in Neukölln, which you should definitely check out. But I think I'm primarily here to talk about NFTs because with my work with Black Artist Database, we've been developing an NFT marketplace which has, I think, solved a lot of the problems that we're hearing about in the industry, or which is offering certain solutions to those. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you this morning. Welcome, everybody.
Amazing. Thank you, Oscar. And Philipp?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Philipp, also born in Berlin, by the way. I grew up basically in a, I think, creative agency environment, and started to fund my first projects in 2016, focusing on legal tech, on copyright protection and personality rights protection. And I think working with that, obviously got in contact with blockchain pretty early, talking about documenting chain of rights and licensing rights. And beginning of this year, we were starting to think about launching a NFT music marketplace, which we did in August this year, 12by12.com, if anybody wants to visit it. And yeah, I think this is the reason why I'm here.
Cool, thank you. And David?
Hi, I'm David DeWalta, born in the south of Germany, moved to Berlin to study jazz music. So I'm a musician and artist and have been actively releasing music from Berlin since 2007, so about 15 years. I'm also running a label, a small underground electronic dance music label called Meander, since around the same time, 2007, 2008. The reason why I'm here, I guess, is because I'm experimenting with the format of NFTs as a creator and artist, and I am looking to explore the opportunities that NFTs are giving artists, directly artists, but also labels, but particularly artists, to release and to be involved and have a seat at the table when it comes to monetization in particular. Yeah, good morning.
Thank you. So maybe Philip, you can help us set the scene. Can you tell us just briefly what an NFT is, what it does? Yeah, just give us the short.
Yeah, I try to make it as short and easy as possible. I think an NFT is basically a digital certificate of ownership. It's basically a framework where you can put in whatever content you want to put in, whatever rights distribution, sales distribution you want to put in. Everything's documented in an NFT, which is basically the certificate, which itself then is stored on a blockchain, which means it's a, let's say, decentralized, immutable ledger, which makes sure that those rights allocation is unique and non-fungible.
Amazing, thank you. Maybe Oscar, and then I'll open it up to all of you. Why is this format particularly interesting to electronic music artists?
You know, I think generally when you think about the origins of electronic music and electronic artists, this is a forward-thinking community. You know, it's a community in a music which is founded on taking old and new pieces of technology and doing inventive things with them. And I think that we're at this really interesting and exciting cultural moment now where we're having all of these developments in technology with Web 3.0, blockchain, and it's basically, it's in the nature of our community to adopt these things and find out how we can use them to our advantage and use them creatively as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just read recently that so far of the music NFTs, 80% of them, of the revenue made with music NFTs, have been made with electronic artists, and that's in stark contrast to the usual balance in revenue in music making. And I think, in addition to what Oscar was saying, some reasons might also be that most music NFTs come as a package with some form of visual art, and electronic musicians are maybe especially used in working with visuals, for example, for their live shows or for their videos. Then I also think it helps that most electronic musicians are used to work by themselves and are not part of a rock group, for example. It's much easier to make a decision for yourself than make it with 4 or 5 other people. And then I think it also helps that a lot of electronic artists are independent artists, so that they are not tied to a major label contract, for example, and have the rights over their own music. That's, for example, also a reason why we as Beatport, like over 90% of the revenue that we are making are with independent labels. So the NFT that we did back in spring was all with artists that were running their own labels and had control over their catalog. So that also meant that they were able to release unreleased music as an NFT.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the intro already. I think the big potential in NFTs is the involvement of the artist directly when it comes to monetization. So I made an NFT about a few months ago and sold it within a few days, which luckily. But the good point, of this was the interesting point of this was that I did something. I sold it directly in the internet, and if it's being resold, I'm involved in the reselling of this thing. So I'd like to make an example. For example, Many of you may know Discogs, a platform that sells or resells used collectible vinyl, particularly vinyl. And you will find records that are very expensive now because they're very rare. So the phenomenon of scarcity bumps up the prices. Now, let's say a record on Discogs sells for 100 euros, but originally was sold for or produced for 7 euros for a value of 7 euros. The artist is not involved in the gain of said record. So it sells for 100 euros. The collector makes a ton of money with it, but the artist who made the music is not involved at all. And this is where I see the biggest potential in NFTs. The artist actually can engrave or can be involved in the electronic contract, which we learned from Philipp, directly from the beginning, so that the artist gets his 10%, 15%, or whatever is on the smart contract every single time that piece of music is being resold. So we find this in many examples. We have a painting from Leonardo da Vinci, which is now I researched it this morning, $867 million worth. Leonardo da Vinci painted it once, but he's not involved in that value anymore. If this was an NFT back then when he did it, he would, every single time, the value would go up of the Mona Lisa would be involved in that increase of the value. So it really boils down to an electronic contract where the artist or the creator is involved every single time. And that is extremely powerful thought, in my opinion, because artists, they create something, they may sign it at the bottom, but then 10 years later, it could be worth 3, 4, 5, or a million times as much, but the artist doesn't have a seat at the table when it comes to the value increase. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Thank
I think that, I mean, right now to be able, not only as an artist, but also as a fan, to participate in the secondary market, in the digital space online,
Exactly.
I think this is something, I mean, humans always have been collectors, I mean, since their life, right? So, and right now, actually, you see this with Gen Zers, when you look at the trends, you know, that they are longing actually for ownership in a digital space, you know, or to individualize their profile. So, and I mean, with, you know, only streaming, never owning anything, it's super interesting for them to be able to do that, and also then, you know, ignite your soul as a collector, you know, to be able to access the secondary market, also to know that if I buy this, you know, I own it and I can do something with that in 10 years or 20 years.
Exactly.
And are able to resell it if I want to. And as you said, the original artist is still participating.
I'm looking at it from the creator's perspective.
No, yeah,
I'm the artist on the table.
Thanks, guys.
You know, just to add to those points, because a lot of the work that we've been doing here with Autonomy is the marketplace that I've been developing with a group of other kind of technical and creative partners. A lot of it is about shifting the ownership model back to the actual participants of the marketplace. And this is, I think, what we're talking about here. We're talking about an opportunity for artists to have a greater say in their careers. You know, we've all just sat at home and witnessed over the pandemic kind of the precarious situation with live venues and with live gigs and things like that. And so it's definitely important for artists to find ways to generate extra sources of income and revenue, and this presents one such. Philipp could definitely speak in more detail about the smart contracts, but in terms of what it does for the secondary market, I mean, we're speaking about Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know, I guess his family's okay, but I remember reading about Kerry James Marshall, the American artist. He did the portrait of the Obamas, you know, the first one, and I think he's now if he's not number one, he's number 2, like highest selling black artist in America. And they were asking him about this when one of his paintings sold for an incredible sum, and they're asking him how he felt, and he was like, you know, I mean, it's cool because I did it, but when I originally sold it, that's not what I sold it for. And in the visual art world, I saw like Swiss Beats has been doing things with Christie's, and they're trying to build in royalties for visual artists. And this is something since, I mean, going back to the first contract signed by blues artists, this is something which has just kind of been accepted by artists like, oh, royalties, I'll let you decide, you know, pay me when you pay me, if you pay me at all. And
Yeah.
we're just not up for that anymore. You know, with BAD, Black Artist Database, we did a podcast episode with a guy called Gerald earlier this year, and he was talking about a number of things, including the blockchain and the possibilities it presents for artists. But he was talking about the legal troubles over Voodoo Ray and not receiving
that's crazy,
payment
right.
for that. Now, if you're an artist today with that kind of talent and you're putting in that kind of work, why would you not take the opportunity to maintain some kind of control over your payments? Why would you not take the opportunity to ensure transparency in your business dealings? So this is, I think, what we're presented with here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of examples, and we're even talking now about, you know, large artists, millions of dollars we're seeing in the NFT space. But are we seeing where the opportunities are for developing artists at this point? If you're not high profile, how are developing artists benefiting from NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, I can start, but I don't want to, you know. I think what the potential here is that in the world that emerging artists actually facing right now with the struggles in order to make real money, you know, to be able to fund their careers, I think with all the live acts and concerts, you know, which was a great opportunity for them actually to make money. I think NFTs could be one of the distribution channels and sales channels where they're actually able to market their work and their content directly to fans, you know. And I think also to get this instant cash in, you know, not maybe you're not waiting 12 months, 16 months until you get like drop by drop from Spotify or from streaming platforms money in, but having the chance to really get this money in instantly, you know, after a week or after 2 weeks, you know, to get the money in and then be able to fund your projects. And I think this is one of the big benefits or potentials.
I think I read somewhere that compared to 6 months ago, the sales in music NFTs have dropped by 95%. And to me, that's actually good news, because what happened in April, March this year is that you had a couple of sales by big EDM artists like Blau or Steve Aoki or Rack. And I mean, this was a lot generated by hype or a certain interest. But I think what we're going to see in the future, and we can only grasp this somehow at the moment, is that this is something that's going to be available for all artists, established artists and emerging artists. One thing that I also noticed recently when, and in a way this has nothing to do with NFTs, but Billie Eilish released her last album a couple of months ago, and in the first week alone in the United States, she sold 10,000 cassette tapes of that album. Now, I was thinking 10,000 cassette tapes in the United States in the first week, how many of her fans actually have a working tape player? Probably just a very small percentage. So in a way, this tape is like an NFT. It's just that a fan wants to own something, and this could be a physical object or it could be a digital object. So one of the formats that I see for NFTs in the future is that they are just part of the release schedule of an artist. And you might have a limited edition 12-inch out, you have a download and a stream, and you might have an NFT in addition to it.
Yeah, speaking about formats, we're seeing like a lot of different formats. You know, collectible digital art, artifacts for games, video clips, streaming through to like albums with physical merchandise or vinyl coming with the NFT. Which forms do you think are the most relevant or beneficial for electronic artists?
If I may jump for that. I think the beautiful thing of the NFT is actually that there is no limitation. An NFT can pretty much be anything. It can be an audiovisual piece of music or collaboration between a visual artist and a musician. It can be a piece of music, it can be a track, it can be an album, but it can be pretty much anything. NFT stands just pretty much just for the technology behind the contract, as Philipp introduced us to in the beginning. It can be anything that you imagine, which opens up a whole wide variety for artists to think of like, okay, I'm interested in this. I make music, but I also do this. I make photos. How can I bring these things together? How can I come up with even more creative outcome? And I'm not limited to that piece of vinyl. I don't have to have that on cassette. I don't have to have that on CD. It can be anything, really. That's, I think, is one of the powers. I'd also wanted to add quickly before, in the past 20 years or 30 years, musicians, in particular, go back to music, have been relying on touring. The income of a musician is probably around between 70 and 90% based on concerts or shows. We have to constantly tour and play shows in order to make a living off of music. This was different in the 70s or 80s. You could make a record. You could be a studio guy, sit at home, make records, sell those records, and pay your bills with that. This is completely unimaginable nowadays. You can't live from record sales. Now, NFTs give that potential down the line, maybe in 10 years or something, give that potential back to creators who don't necessarily want to be on stage all the time. Because you could technically come up with something, sell it, and don't have to tour.
I would say, Heiko made a very useful point, which is to think about the NFT as basically a distribution tool. And so when you think about it that way, all of those formats that you mentioned are equally important. It's dependent on the artist.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want to present? How do you want to engage with your audience? And all of those things provide you with options. I think actually, when you think about the fact that this music or this art is being stored permanently on the blockchain, there's also kind of an artistic responsibility and an artistic opportunity to think about what do you want to archive in these permanent spaces and how do you want to curate those. I recently came across a family of Ethiopian artists. I think the lead artist there, her IG is _Tenu, Tenu. And no connection, but I just thought this is a remarkable way to use the blockchain. They've been going into their family history, into Ethiopian history, and they've been making loops of traditional songs and presenting videos of traditional dances, and these are being minted as NFTs. I often try to make the point, like Heiko said, that the price went down. It's a good thing. We've been experiencing hyperinflation, and a lot of people in the space, like always with tech, trying to make a very quick buck, selling you things that you don't need, want, or particularly care for. But you can engage with this as deeply as you want. Not just thinking about NFTs, but thinking about Web 3.0, thinking about the metaverse. Whether it's Travis Scott performing in Fortnite, Moody Man being in Grand Theft Auto, I think all of the lines between different creative practices are being completely blurred. And having these mechanisms that allow you to package things together, it just presents even more creative opportunities, and again, further ways to engage directly with your supporters. So it's a time, I think, for artists not to wait to be dictated to. This is what an NFT is. Expand your mind and try and engage as creatively as you can.
I just wanted to quickly add, because what you said just made me realize what for me sometimes is missing in the discussion around NFTs. So much is focused on NFTs as a possible revenue stream and income stream. But for me, what's maybe equally interesting is what are the creative possibilities? As an artist, what do NFTs allow you to do that you can't otherwise do? And I think just in the presentation before this, we saw a lot of great things that artists can explore with music, and maybe for some of them an NFT can be the best container to release this project. For example, just this week the artist Richie Horton had a new NFT, and this is like part of a generative art project, like a visual artist had an image of a serpent that's transforming over a whole year, and he had music along with it that's also morphing for a whole year. Traditionally, you would have either maybe not done this piece of art, or you would have maybe put it in a gallery, but maybe an NFT is actually the best container for an idea like this?
Container is a great word, I think, to describe NFTs, because it's about what you put inside that matters, and the NFT is the technology that is the container for your art or your music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. Go for it, Oscar.
I want to add to this. Even with the price going down, I was reading a Forbes report earlier this year, and they said it was, at that time, $174 million had been spent on NFTs since 2017. You saw the Swiss stock exchange just received regulatory authority to have a securities offering for digital assets as well. And earlier this year, also Quincy Jones, in partnership with a company, raised $60 million for what will be a more mainstream NFT company. I bring all of these examples to say, when you see the more traditional world and these traditional companies moving to these spaces, getting the necessary authorities to make offerings, when you see the scale of the investment, I think we've got to understand that these developments may be here for some time. And when streaming, or rather file sharing, first came to everybody's attention, at first we were scared and we're like, this is going to ruin music for us, and how do we make money? And then they tried to control it and suppress it. And finally, they established the streaming services. And whilst we were all waiting and wondering to see what will happen with the technology, those companies came, established their foothold, and artists have been complaining about the unfair splits ever since. And so I think we have to look at this and take the opportunity, whilst it's still very early days, to go and lay flags down and lay markers down and establish some ownership of this space whilst we're still able to have a say.
Thank you. David, you just...
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the original question, sorry, for all the possibilities of what you can do as an artist, and you can put in the container, NFT container. I think especially addressing emergent artists or smaller artists who don't have the money, don't have the team backing them, because I think in public everybody always talks about those great, art projects, cross-disciplinary visual art and music art. And a lot of artists that come to us, that want to publish content on our marketplace, they're always like, what can we do? How can we, cope with that, And I think, for artists maybe here in the audience or generally out there, I think if we realize that this can also just become a distribution channel for the regular work that you do as an artist, right? Then I think you also have a danger of all the possibilities and varieties that you have. And I would always say, more stick with what you have, What we usually do, for example, is to go back and say, let's think, when you have an NFT and you want to try it out, you just want to give it a try, then think of it like a limited box or something for your album, for example, right? Because if you have the right audience, you can talk about limitations and scarcity, obviously, on the amount. And this is something to get started with, to get used to that. Also to try it with your fan base, We have so different, we did a great job with Innovisions, for example, a couple of weeks ago, which got sold out. And there you could see that they have the right audience for that. They understand this, and they're eager to participate. It was great content. And we have other artists that have difficulties with that. And it's challenging for them because they don't have the right demographic in their fan base. And I think it's really about going out there and trying it out, and don't overthink it too much. And be afraid, of not coping or you're not being able to challenge all the big things that you read, because it's not what you need as an artist to convince your fans.
And I think this kind of brings me naturally to the next point, which is we're seeing all this potential and opportunity, but what are the key challenges that artists are going to face or are already facing in this space?
That might be very basic, but one of the challenges for me is that I have the feeling in most music NFTs that we've been seeing in the last 6 months happening, the music is actually not the most important part. It's the reach of the artist or maybe the cloud of the artist, but it's actually not the music in itself. The music is I've hardly seen any successful music NFTs that were successful with the music only. So I have the feeling most NFTs are more like audiovisual projects. And for me, this is a challenge. If you're a musician first and that's your key interest, I have the feeling you're disadvantaged in this market at the moment. Like just like you said, Innovisions is a great example. Like they have a lot of experience in working with visual arts, with AI and VR worlds, but a lot of artists don't have that or have no interest in that. And then another challenge for me, maybe are three things, is a lack of trust in platforms, the longevity of certain NFTs, that a lot of things are just focused on short attention and you don't know what the long-term value of them is. And maybe also transparency, that as a fan you don't really know, or as an artist, what money goes to whom. Sometimes, especially with some of like big pop or hip-hop artists, NFTs to me look more like an influencer marketing campaign than really an interest in new technology or exploring new creative ways.
What's going on? Every time I say something, Heiko's like following up, and every time Heiko says something, I get some thoughts. I think sometimes, challenge can be rephrased, or it's not even rephrased like it's semantics. You can simply just view it as opportunity and possibility. Audio visuals, they're not new. I don't know if anybody else has seen Magical Mystery Tour by the Beatles, but people have been, combining music and visuals for a long time. I know that wasn't like the best film, but I think the idea of trying to combine the two is something that artists can embrace. But I would agree with you. I think that one of the biggest problems, and this is what's been making people skeptical and making NFTs seem more like a buzzword, is that, some of the music it doesn't bang, does it? Like, some of the music isn't great. And I think you also have the problems that you have in the industry more widely in terms of representation. So sometimes I look at the artists that have been selected or that have work out on certain platforms, and I'm wondering, why does this not represent our community? Why does this not represent society? Why does this not represent the actual musical landscape in terms of what are you really listening to when you're going out and dancing, or when you're listening at home? So definitely with autonomy is one of the ways that we have tried to combat that, is by having a proper diverse selection and curation of onboarded artists, and that is diversity in terms of styles, but diversity in terms of gender and background and all of these things, because I don't think that we can separate these issues from what we're doing. So sure, talk about revenues and creativity, but also some of these societal issues that we're working on elsewhere are also relevant to take into this space too.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to keep things moving. I just noticed the time. Philipp, maybe you can just speak quickly on the platform or buyer side of things. What are the sort of challenges or things that people need to be aware of quickly?
I mean, I would say the first challenge is that people don't understand what an NFT is, right? And I think when you look at the different generations, you have also challenging mindsets when it comes to what is the worth of digital ownership. I mean, in a previous startup that I did, I was taking care of photographers, and the copyright infringements online, and we could see a lot of the feedback coming back that people really don't understand what the value is. It's basically, if I can copy paste it, then I can have it, right? So I think there's still a lot of education to be done. I think one of the biggest stories that, as an artist, that you can tell and you should tell your fan base is that this money is coming directly to you. So I think this is something that people need to understand, and that NFT is basically just a facilitator, a facilitator to make this possible, for you as a fan to really participate and engage and support your artist directly. I think the difficulty that you have right now is I mean, we need to understand that we are really early
The
in this market.
volatility also of the market.
Yeah.
We haven't talked much about the crypto world altogether here. We're just talking about NFTs, but NFTs only work within the crypto world, and that's very volatile market. So value, we talk about money, but the value of Ethereum goes up and down based on whatever month it is, right? So those are also challenges, for example.
That people
like we
definitely
talk
need
about
to be aware of, yeah.
value or money coming to you or something, but this is in the end a cryptocurrency that comes to you, and that may or may not be quite volatile depending on the market.
Yeah, I think this is quite often also a misconception, right? I think you can have NFTs without ever touching cryptocurrency, if you want to.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
So, and people are always like, oh, this is Bitcoin, this is
Yeah.
this is for gamblers, this is not for me, this is going up. I don't know what it's going to be worth in the future. But I think people always need structure, and as boring as that might sound, I think it's also time for artists, and maybe for the market, just to also structure this a little bit, because if you find certain formats, being offered from several artists, you on the buyer side, this is something that we realize is if you offer the same formats from different artists, people will recognize this, and feel more comfortable in this space.
Sorry, just to add on the economics, because these things are important. I think we should try and share knowledge with each other. You can Google, later stable coins, but there are currencies in this space which are backed by government currencies and therefore are less volatile. But also, I think that people shouldn't be scared by volatility. It's economics, and when you look at how new crypto is, we're still in a pricing stage whereby these sums will shift. These valuations, which is why I started to speak about some of the regulatory movements that you're seeing in banking and finance that suggest, look, systems are being set up very much with a long-term goal. So it's volatile now, but I don't think that should be overly scary for people. And I just say that the most important thing I think that Philipp was saying is that we have to do some education to engage with this with confidence, whether that's coming to things like this or engaging with new platforms. I'm sorry to plug, but if you go to autonomies.io and you read the landing page, we're trying to start some of that education because as artists as well, I think we'll have to educate our supporters and our collaborators.
Totally.
But we shouldn't shy away from this because whilst you're thinking, I don't want to Google, the major companies with much bigger wallets, they are doing all of the research, and I think they will squeeze us out of the space if we don't take it upon ourselves to, learn up.
Okay, great. That actually brings us to our last question. We are kind of running out of time. What advice would you give to emerging artists, developing artists who are looking to explore the opportunities within the NFT space? And do you have any resources, for example, for people who are wanting to learn more? I think we'll start with Heiko.
My advice would be, don't do it just because everyone else is doing it. You should do it for a reason. There should be a reason, either a creative reason or a curiosity in technology that you want to develop something, and then educate yourself. And actually, one of my favorite music tech journalists is an American journalist named Cherry Hu, and she's got a newsletter and membership platform called Water and Music. And I would recommend everyone, she's not just covering NFTs, but everything connected with music and technology. And I think that's a great resource.
Okay, thank you, Heiko. David?
Yeah, also experimentation, creativity. NFTs, at least when I did my first one, I was really thinking outside of the box of the usual thing. So I would advise every artist who's interested in this to think about, what do I want to do, and the real content, the creativity behind your project. This could be a piece of music or whatever, audiovisual, whatever. We talk the container thing. And I would advise just actually meditating about what you want to say as an artist, and then thinking about the format later. Often we talk about, let's make a record. This is even like, let's make a record. We already use the word record, but it should be, let's make music, or let's make art. And NFTs opens that definition quite a bit. And my advice would be, let your imagination go wild, your creativity. Again, photography, any kind of art, any kind of music can be represented through the technology of NFTs. And that would be my advice as an artist, to just meditate around what you actually want to say, and then later think about the medium. NFTs open up the possibility, because it's that chameleon medium that can be pretty much anything, to get your art across to someone who'd like to consume it. And another thing that I'd like to add, the cool thing is you can actually give it away for free. You can upload it on YouTube, literally, because the ownership is in the hands of one person, while at the same time you could pretty much like spread the word, spread your art around the world with all the other platforms. We haven't talked much about this, but once the ownership is in one hand and that's being dealt with, there's millions of copies out there, copies or likes or plays on YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever it may be. So that's pretty cool. You don't think so much about protecting your art anymore. You're actually thinking about spreading your art rather than protecting it from things. So it's quite beautiful to think of it this way as an artist, I think.
Cool, thanks, David.
Some advice. I didn't really know too much about crypto and NFTs until about February of this year, when I was brought into this project. And I couldn't say it more, Google is your friend. Like, you know, you have to, there has to be some initiative to take it, you know, upon yourself. And if you're not sure what's the difference between proof of stake and proof of work, we didn't talk about the environment.
Yeah.
But you know, go and Google these things. I'll be around for, I think, some more of this, and I'm happy to have chats with people. I recently did some panels, and there'll be more kind of in real life events with the NFT digital art community, which I think you should look out for. And Matt Dryhurst actually has got a really good podcast called the Interdependence Podcast. I'd recommend that for all things to do with the intersection between kind of tech and digital art and music.
Thanks, Oscar. I'm really sorry, but that is all we have time for. Philip, do you have something? 10 seconds?
10 seconds. Okay, no, I think don't be afraid to go out, you know, and talk to your fellow artists, talk to your community, talk to your fans about it. Learn from the dialogue, educate yourself online. Google is your friend. I think never lose yourself as an artist. You don't need to be a different artist to work with NFTs. And I think also aligning with Heiko, you always will need a reason why and a story to tell on why you go out there and start doing NFTs.
Thank you. So yeah, I just want to thank all of our amazing panelists for being here today, sharing your expertise and providing such insight. I think we can all agree that the potential in this space is huge, and if we as an industry, we can harness this, we can actually redefine what our industry is moving forward. So yeah, thank you all, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
for listening.
Bye-bye.